In this video, we'll be taking a look at the 2024 electoral map based on new polling averages from every single state, and I do mean every single state. This is going to be the most comprehensive election map video out there. We're going to go over the data from every single race where it is available so you guys can get a full and complete look at the 2024 race and where Harris and Trump stand on the path to 270 electoral votes. We'll begin on the West Coast and slowly move our way eastward, starting off in Washington, where Kamala Harris leads by 21.5 percentage points. The state is going to be safe blue on our map. Next up in Oregon, she leads by 5. This is the only poll conducted between the two nominees. The vice president leads by a lean margin. And then in California, the Golden State is Kamala Harris's home state. She's ahead by 23.7, so we have another solid blue state here on the Pacific Coast. And then in Nevada, Kamala Harris is also defending the Silver State, a state that no Democrat has lost since John Kerry in 2004. Today, though, Trump actually leads in the polling average. He's ahead by 0.9%, and out of the 4 most recent polls from the state, none of them show Kamala Harris ahead, but 2 do have Trump in the lead. Nevada is probably going to go in favor of the former president. It's a state he's never won before, but it would be a huge victory for the GOP, especially after they flipped the governorship here just 2 years ago. Neighboring Arizona is also going to be incredibly competitive. It is the second of the 7 swing states that will really decide this election, and once again, Trump is in the lead. He's ahead by 1.8%. He leads in 5 out of the 6 most recent surveys. Not a single one has Harris ahead. However, this is yet another state that the vice president is defending on behalf of the Democratic Party. Joe Biden won Arizona back in 2020. There's no way Harris is going to repeat his success in the election in just 2 weeks. Trump is no doubt on track to win back Arizona. He's going to win it by a similar margin to his victory in 2016 when he carried the state by 3.5%. Arizona is going to be lean red. Moving over to Colorado and New Mexico, we have 2 races Biden carried easily by double-digit margins in the last election. Colorado by nearly 14 points, New Mexico by 11. Today, the vice president leads by 11 in Colorado, although this is a left-leaning pollster. It is probably going to be a single-digit margin that separates the vice president and the former president. And then in New Mexico, the vice president leads by less than 8, another drop-off from where Democrats were 4 years ago. So both Colorado and New Mexico are going to be likely Democratic on our map. Trump is also doing very well in Texas, a state he carried by just over 5 points in 2020. Now, the polling average today does have him ahead by a very similar margin, but what you have to keep in mind is that 4 years ago, polls had Texas going to Trump by just 1%. It was basically an even race, and Trump still pulled off a pretty clear victory. This time, he's already leading by a pretty clear margin. He's going to be able to win Texas by at least 10 points or more. The Lone Star State is going to be lean red on the map, but in reality, it's probably going to be likely Republican when all the votes are counted. Moving up now to the states in the middle of the country. Like I said, this is going to be the most comprehensive video out there. We're going to start off in Montana, where Trump leads by 17.4%. The state is going to be solid red. Utah is also going to be safe Republican, where Trump leads by 24 points. He's ahead by 27 in North Dakota, and in Oklahoma, he leads by 16. So all 3 of these states are going to be safe for the former president. In the remaining states, we currently do not have any polling data. However, we're going to fill in these states at the very end. Obviously, they're also going to go to Trump. We do have 2 polls from the 2nd District of Nebraska, though, and they show Harris leading on average by 10 points, so it's going to be likely in favor of the Democrats. We don't have any polling in Alaska or Hawaii either, so we're just going to move straight on up to the Midwest, where the election is likely going to be decided. For Harris to win, she needs to carry Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania if she wants to have any shot at getting to 270 electoral votes. And after we fill in this part of the map, you'll start to see why she is in such an incredibly poor position. We're going to start in Minnesota, where Kamala Harris leads by 4.7% in the the polls. This is Governor Tim Walz's home state. If she wasn't running with Walz and led by just under 5 points, it would be okay. Still not as strong as Biden's 7-point victory here from back in 2020, but she is running with Minnesota's literal governor, who was reelected by a double-digit margin in 2022. If she can't even outperform Biden in the home state of her running mate, she is in big trouble. And so Minnesota on our map right now is only going to be lean blue. Before we continue, nearly 3/4 of you guys are not subscribed, so please subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And join my Discord server to participate in our 2024 election map prediction contest. Just go to discord.gg/elections. Coming back to the map, we're now going to fill in the lower Midwest, starting in Iowa, where Trump leads by 4%, according to the only poll here. This poll is obviously going to be wrong. Trump is always underestimated in the state. Ultimately, it's going to be likely Republican Trump will win Iowa by 7 to 10 points, but for now, it's only going to be lean red on our map. In Illinois, we don't have any high-quality polling, but in Indiana, Donald Trump leads by a whopping 16.5 percentage points, so the state is going to be dark red. Meanwhile, Ohio is also going to go to Trump, but by a slightly lesser margin. The former president leads by 7, compared to where he was in 2016 and 2020. This is an incredible performance. Trump leads by the largest margin ever. Ohio is going to be likely for the former president. And so we're left now with Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, the big three. These are must-wins for Kamala Harris. 3 states that Democrats won in every single election from 1992 all the way until 2016, when Trump flipped all 3, defeating Hillary Clinton and winning the election. Joe Biden won all 3 of these states back in 2020, and a pattern that's gone on for the last 4 decades is that these 3 states always vote together. The last time they didn't all go to the same candidate was back in the late 80s. And so coming into 2024, Kamala Harris was in a relatively strong position in all 3 of these states. That's why last month people thought that she was actually on track to win. But obviously her momentum was always going to die down, and that really is starting to happen now. In Wisconsin, she just lost her lead a week ago. This was the last state to flip from Harris to Trump in the polling average. The former president is ahead by 0.4. Obviously, this race is still going to be very close. It really is neck and neck, although Harris did lead over the last 2 months. However, one big thing to keep in mind is that at this point in 2016, Clinton led by 6.5 points. At this point in 2020, Biden led by 4.6. The fact that Trump is even ahead is a big deal, and this nearly guarantees a victory for the former president in Wisconsin, which based on the polling is only going to be tilt Republican. Michigan, on the other hand, is actually going to be lean Republican, with Donald Trump leading by 1.2%. Of the 8 most recent polls from the state, he's ahead in 6. Harris leads in none. This really is quite an incredible performance on Trump's part, because in 2016, Clinton led by 11 points at this point. Joe Biden in 2020 led by 7.8. Once again, just like in Michigan, the fact that Trump is ahead here basically guarantees his victory. Michigan was the first state that shifted from red to blue after Harris entered the race in late July. She's been ahead ever since, until Trump took back the lead just 2 weeks ago. If you look at how all the swing states voted in 2020, Michigan was the most liberal of all 7. And today, it is not only going to be a Trump state, but it's actually going to be lean in favor of the former president. And now to finish up the Midwest, in Pennsylvania, this is another state Harris must win. If you look at the 4 swing states we've already covered so far, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan, if Harris wins all of them, Trump can still get to the presidency, because all he needs is Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, and he knows this. That's why he's put so much effort and time into Pennsylvania. This was where he actually almost got shot, and this was also where he worked at McDonald's just a few days ago. And his efforts have been working. He's taking the lead in the polling average. He's ahead by 0.8, and just like in its 2 Midwestern neighbors, Pennsylvania polling heavily overestimated Democrats in the last 2 elections, but today, Trump is finally in the lead for the first time. He's ahead in 7 out of the 10 most recent polls from the state. Pennsylvania has always been close, but with the election looming, Trump is starting to build a lead. The state is going to be tilt Republican on our map. Moving up to the Northeast, we do have some notable changes that have occurred over the last few days. New York is now solid blue based on the polling average. Harris leads by 16.5 percentage points on average, the first time New York has been solid blue for the vice president thus far. It's still probably going to be the worst Democratic performance in the Empire State since 1988, but at least on all the maps, it's going to be colored in dark blue. Vermont is also going to be safe. Harris leads by 41 points. Meanwhile, in New Hampshire, she's ahead by 7.8, right above the 7-point threshold for a state to be likely. The Granite State is going to be likely blue. It has been shifting away from Trump, even though he almost won it in 2016, losing out to Clinton by just 0.3. And then in Maine, we have another rather competitive race, but if you look at the polls, you wouldn't think so. Harris actually leads by 11 points. The polls here are heavily overestimating Democratic support, but based purely on the numbers, it is going to be likely blue. The first district is going to be solid for Harris. She's ahead by 27.5. And in the second district, once again, the polls here are heavily overestimating Harris. The polls have Trump leading by exactly 1%. So the first district is going to be safe for the vice president. The second district, lean for Trump. Down in Massachusetts, Harris leads by 29.5. She's ahead by 16 in Connecticut, and she's ahead by 20 in Rhode Island. So the 3 remaining New England states are all going to be safe Democratic. We don't have any polling from New Jersey, but in Joe Biden's home state of Delaware, the vice president leads by 20, while in Maryland, she's ahead by 29. So 2 additional safe blue states on the map. And now to finish off the map down south, we're going to begin with the relatively safe Trump states. In Missouri, he leads by 10 points. The race is going to be likely red, while in Arkansas, the former president is ahead by 15, so that's going to be solid for the former president. In West Virginia, he leads by a whopping 27%. And then finally, in South Carolina, Trump is ahead by 10, another likely state for the former president. We're now left with just 4 more competitive states: Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. Starting up north in Virginia, Kamala Harris leads by 6.4%. She's been boosted by 2 new outlier polls that are heavily overestimating Democratic support. Joe Biden carried Virginia by a double-digit margin in 2020. Kamala Harris is going to be lucky if she wins by even half that. The state is trending to the right. Republicans actually won 3 major statewide races in 2021, including the governorship, and that was the first time Republicans ever won a statewide race in Virginia in over a decade. And so for now, based on the polling data, the state is going to be lean Democrat, although it could definitely get more competitive. And then in North Carolina, this is swing state number 6. Only Georgia remains after this. And just like in the previous 5, Donald Trump leads in the polls. He's ahead by 0.4. North Carolina is actually getting surprisingly close. Trump's lead here is the smallest of any of the 7 battlegrounds, although Trump is still doing a lot better than he did in both 2016 and 2020. He's been ahead in the polling average throughout the entirety of the election cycle. Democrats have never been ahead here, whether it was Harris or Biden at the top of the ticket. And Trump is very likely to win North Carolina, a state he carried in both 2016 and 2020, the only swing state he won in both of the last 2 elections, but based on the current data, it's going to be tilt red. In Georgia, Trump's surge has been incredible. If you were to guess what he leads by, you would probably be underestimating him. He is actually ahead today by 2.5 percentage points. He was behind in Georgia for over a week back in September. today, the Harris campaign is absolutely falling apart. They did a campaign rally with Usher. That obviously hasn't done anything. Trump leads by 2.5 points. This is yet another state that Kamala Harris is defending. Joe Biden won the Peach State by the smallest margin of any race on the entire map. Again, just like in Arizona, there's no chance that Harris is going to replicate Biden's success here from 4 years ago. Georgia is going to be lean Republican. Trump is going to win. It'll be the first step in his return to the White House. The Peach State is going to be lean Republican on the map. And then finally in Florida, 30 electoral votes up for grabs here. In the past, it's always been close, but that is clearly no longer the case. Trump leads by 7.8%. We have two new polls showing Trump up by huge margins. One by the University of North Florida, it has Trump up by 10, and another New York Times poll that has him up by a whopping 14 points. Florida only went to Trump by 3% in the last election, but this time he is going to at least double his margin of victory. And so the Sunshine State is going to be likely Republican when all the votes are counted. And so this is the 2024 electoral map based on polling averages from every single state. There are a few races where we do not have any high quality data, but these are the most solid of Democrat and Republican states. We're going to fill them in right now. Trump is easily going to win Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, the remainder of Nebraska, as well as Kansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Alaska, while Harris will come out on top in Hawaii, Illinois, New Jersey, and the District of Columbia. So with the map all filled in, the polls currently project a modern-day landslide victory in favor of Donald Trump with 312 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 226. This would be the best performance for any Republican since 1988. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and follow me on Twitter for daily political updates, and join my Discord server at discord.gg/elections.